All right, I am going to spend a few minutes here providing a few definitions of anxiety. Why am I going to do this? First of all, I think if we're going to say that we have anxiety, if we're going to possibly label ourselves as anxious, then it is useful to actually define that for ourselves, know that what we mean when we say that. I also know that, at least for myself, when I read definitions, not only related to anxiety, but other things in my life that I was dealing with or maybe affected by, it very often really helped me a lot just to really understand the underlying words and definitions and where they came from. Actually received tremendous amount of relief just from doing that. So I know there's going to be a few of you that probably will have the same reaction here. So let me go ahead and jump into it. I pulled a few definitions here that have, well, as you might imagine with anxiety, you're going to, when you look up definitions, you're going to, the definitions are going to have similarities. So I pulled a couple, one from the American Psychological Association, one from a guy named psychologist author named David Barlow, and from a book that he wrote called Anxiety and Its Disorders, The Nature and Treatment of Anxiety and Panic from 2002. But there are many other definitions out there, and that's part of what I want to get across here too, is that there isn't one right definition or correct definition. And as we'll see here, there are in the definition some similarities that you'll notice, but then also some differences. And so you get to decide what, if anything, you make of the different definitions and the differences between them. What I'm anticipating and what I'm hopeful for you, because this is what worked for me, is that there will be some concepts here that you can use on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis as you go through your life to thrive with anxiety. Something that will give you comfort or meaning or an explanation, an understanding that allows the paradigm to shift a bit for you, or maybe a lot. We'll see. So American Psychological Association's definition: an emotion characterized by apprehension and somatic symptoms of tension in which an individual anticipates impending danger, catastrophe, or misfortune. David Barlow's definition, and I'm going to go back here in a minute and talk again about the APA definition up here. David Barlow: anxiety is an uncontrollable, diffuse, or spread out, unpleasant, and persistent state of negative affect, characterized by apprehensive anticipation regarding unpredictable and unavoidable future danger and accompanied by physiological symptoms of tension and a constant state of heightened vigilance. So the similarities here are words like anticipation, apprehension is in both of these, danger. They use different words, such as uncontrollable is in the David Barlow definition. That's sort of a word that I'm working through here as I think about, well, is anxiety uncontrollable? That word itself doesn't really resonate with me as far as the definition goes. In David Barlow's, for me, the heightened vigilance is something that I deal with on a daily basis. I feel like I'm just have an over-awareness of what's going on around me, waiting for the shoe to drop, sort of. So that's also similar to the phrasing of apprehensive anticipation. And we're talking about danger, and we're talking about future danger, but is that future danger in 1 second, 10 seconds, 5 minutes? Is it a year down the road? I think there's some flexibility there, and also what that flexibility and subjectivity in the definition here makes it so that we can mold the definitions to suit our purposes, and by that I mean if there's a way we can look at the definition of anxiety that gives us comfort, gives us structure, gives us meaning, then that's how I try to use looking at the definition for myself. Not just to get a definition so I have a definition, but actually so I have something more actionable that I can take from that definition. Those were the main things I wanted to point out there in those definitions. Now, etymology another aspect of defining words. Essentially, where did those who aren't familiar with a word like etymology, where did the word or aspects of the word anxiety come from originally? So I'm going to read this here. The word anxiety derives from the Latin substantive angor and the corresponding verb ango, which means to constrict. I'll get back to that in a second. I think that's interesting. A cognate word is angustus. I should have looked up cognate before I did this video here, which means narrow. Angustus means narrow. These words derive from an Indo-European root that has produced the word angst in modern German and related words in Dutch, Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish. So what's interesting here for me is the fact that the word anxiety derives, its root, its derivation is from a word like constrict or narrow. And that really is useful to me, because when I think of how I feel when I have anxiety, I feel compressed, I feel constricted, I feel more narrow. What's useful for me with that is then knowing it's a constriction, knowing it's a narrowing. What I'm really trying to do to get relief or to thrive from anxiety is to expand, to not constrict, to expand. I think that's the best word that for me is sort of the antonym, the opposite of constriction and narrowing. I also wanted to make the point that you coming up with your own definition, I think, is useful, and all of what is written here by David Barlow and the APA, these definitions mostly align with how I think about anxiety, but I wanted to add an aspect of it. So my definition incorporates these definitions up here, but also for me, anxiety is an overestimation or exaggeration of future danger. For me, that feels relevant, so that I'm not just categorizing anxiety as any future danger or any feelings I have on an ongoing basis that relate to future danger, but for me, it's the overestimation or exaggeration of that, the actual risk of that future danger coming into play. But I'm still working out my definition, and but I wanted to share this just so you could see a couple of definitions, some similarities and differences, the etymology with constriction and narrowing, and the antonym of expansion I thought might be useful, and then also just getting started creating your own definition. And I'm curious if my definition or addition to the other definitions of an overestimation or exaggeration of future danger might be useful. That was a lot. Thank you for staying with me there. Hopefully that was helpful.